Well, I think a lot of people are up at Camp Sabo. I think the retreat is today. So I think that's where a lot of them are. I'd like to ask for special prayer for my wife. She tripped and fell and wrenched her leg or calf and ankle, so she's hobbling around. Special prayer for her. Special prayer for my daughters. One's in school, graduate school. She keeps getting A's in papers, but she's always nervous about it. And the other one's down nursing and intensive care, and she always has challenges there, so pray for them. Oh, okay. Upper back. I've had those. Okay. Anything else? Well, we got evangelistic meetings coming up soon. Hopefully that will pray for that our church is full from that. And for our members who are not here, the ones that, well, we did missing members, so I guess that covers that. Okay, let's bow our head for prayer. Dear Heavenly and gracious Father, though we are small in number, you say if just two are together, your Spirit will be there. We ask for your Spirit to be here today, that we worship you and love you, and understand what it is that your mission is, and how to be hospitable and friendly as a Christian. In thy name forever. Amen. Are you guys enjoying the leaves? I think we're at peak color here, down here. And now you're from Europe. I'm told they don't have this kind of color change in Europe, as vibrant as in North America. Like here. Yeah. Because I'm told people will come from Europe for the season just to look at the colors, you know. Pine, more pines in Europe? Yeah, okay. No, pines don't change, do they? Yeah. No, the maples are the ones that have really the best color, you know. And I think they're native to North America, so yeah, that's interesting. Okay. The memory text today comes from us John 13:34 through 35. A new commandment I give you, to love one another as I have loved you, that you also love one another. This is all known that you, so by this you all will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another. Okay. It's 11th commandment, yeah, love one another. Now let me ask you something. Is it easy to love one another in this church? Well, I mean, the apostles were with Jesus, right? And what was their favorite occupation when they were with Jesus? Arguing and fighting amongst themselves. They were not, you know, it did not seem like they loved one another very much, you know. How many I have 3 brothers and 2 sisters. How many come from a fairly large family? You do? Do you get along with your brothers and sisters?
2 of them are gone.
I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah. Yeah.
I came from family of 8.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's quite large family. And it's still 3 alive
3 alive?
with myself, you know.
All of my brothers and sisters are alive. We got together recently, and I think I had, in one of the meetings I said, I'm going to ask for prayer that we don't get into an argument, and we didn't, and wind up disliking each other for a while.
That's not good. What could you, at this point in life, what even would you be
You'd be
arguing-
surprised.
arguing about? I've gotten to the point where most of the stuff we would argue about is not worth arguing about.
You would think we would get there, but we don't. We haven't got there.
From my family, they never crossed 93 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, but my sister already crossed 94. But I still have some kind of luck.
Yeah.
Next one.
You know, a funny story. Natalie, my daughter, in her freshman composition class, now she doesn't remember this, but I remember this specifically. She called me and said, "Dad, I want to do a paper on how your family communicates." And,
Not a good choice.
and she said, "I won't do it if you don't want me to do it." You know, and I said, "Yeah, you can do it. I know our family's a bit unusual. You know, you can do whatever you want." So she wrote the paper, and then she called me and she told me the professor read that paper out in class. And she said, after he looked at me afterwards, says, "Is this really true?" And she goes, "Yes, every word of it." And he looked at her, he kind of shook his head and walked away.
Did she write a true story?
Oh, yeah, she did. She brought it home and let me read it, because one of the reasons I remember it. So, families we have a hard time getting along, don't we? Some of us do. Okay? We have a church family here, right? Would you say, and I'm going to ask a trick question here. Would you say the Seventh-day Adventist Church is a welcoming church, a hospitable church?
I would say so. Depends on the person.
Supposed to be. There's the key. You just said it.
It
Depends on the person.
Yeah. Everybody's perception is different.
We think that when we use the word church, a lot of us think that the church is this structure, right? Or they think the church is the people in Lansing, or the people at the GC in the Washington, D.C. That's a misnomer. They're part of the church.
But they are not.
They may have we may grant them some authority, but they're not the church. The church is you and me, and our head is who? It's Christ. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So if someone says we're not a hospitable church, who are you pointing the finger at?
Yourself.
Yourself. Right.
You know, to be hospitable, you should have that third person
What's the third person?
to judge if really we are.
Hospitable or not.
Yeah. Because we, as church, we can claim that we are doing our job.
Mm-hmm.
You know? But that third person who just come in to Abraham, you know,
Yeah.
didn't say anything,
Well,
but Abraham jumped and go to them.
Goes to them.
This is way how to judge people.
Yes. Now, do you think we're, as a nation, more hospitable now than we were, say, 20 years ago?
No, we're less.
Oh yeah, we still.
Less.
We're less?
We're less hospitable. It's gotten worse. I mean, I grew up as a child in the 50s and 60s, and you could go to people's houses, they would feed you and do things like that. I mean, if you were, they hadn't even met you and you were playing with their kids, oh, well, let me call your mom, see if it's okay, and you can have something to eat, and, you can eat. People don't even want you in their house for the most part now. If you know them, if you barely know them, and sometimes if you know them, they don't want you over there because of other issues that you don't even know about.
Oh, yeah, there are other issues.
It used to be that when you moved into a neighborhood, all your neighbors would come together as a welcoming committee and say, welcome to the neighborhood, this is who we are, Hollywood pokes fun at that sometimes, but it doesn't happen much anymore. It's like when we moved, we were lucky when we bumped into our neighbors just to say, hi, yeah, we just moved in next door.
Yeah.
And the dog has done more for us to get acquainted with our neighbors than anything else because we walk her so much. The neighbors come out and see her, and then we get acquainted with them.
Yeah, that does. But yeah,
But as a nation, I tell you, opinion, wherever you go, that the United States of America, the people who live here, the most hospitable.
well, I think that's true. I have read that Europeans are surprised when Americans come over there. They just start talking to them, and they're like, why are you talking to me? I don't know you, and things like that. I have heard that is, and they think we're a bit forward because of that. But yes, many people talk about the generosity of the nation and so forth. But I do think you're right. From growing up here, just give you a typical example. I can remember when I was a kid riding with my dad in the pickup truck or in the car. If there was somebody who's had a flat tire that broke down, my dad would stop and help them do that. Nowadays,
Oh, too, bad luck for them, I'm going on.
well, I think people are a bit frightened. Let's face it, crime has gotten worse.
Oh, it's,
Yeah, and crime has gotten worse, and things happen, and you know what? The drugs and the alcohol that is so pervasive now in our society is ruined the hospitality.
the lesson brought out something that was, preparing to teach, I have no class, and reading about the love that Abraham and even Lot had for people that they didn't know, strangers that they didn't know. Now, in our country, a country of immigrants, everybody here came from somewhere else. Their family came to. They don't even want immigrants to be in the country now.
Well, I don't think I don't know. I don't think we want illegal immigrants, but I think we're very welcome on legal immigration.
Well, even if you look at, I just watching the change, it used to be people could come from other countries and move here illegally, and as long as they worked and had a job, nobody said much. But now, because of world conditions, because this is only happening because conditions in other parts of the world have gotten so bad that their lives are in danger, they can't live there, they think they can come here, and because we're the land of opportunity, that's what we've sprouted ourselves, expounded ourselves to be, and there's a lot of opportunity here. But now, it's gotten to the point where, because it's too bad that that's their situation, that their lives are in danger there, but you can't come here unless you come through certain channels. You can't come here.
Well, you know what really...
Before, that wasn't the case.
Do you know when that changed?
When did it change? I'm curious.
That changed with the Cubans, the Metropolitan boat lift, when Castro emptied his prisons and sent them to America, and the crime in the Miami area. Miami's got it under control now. Miami's actually a very safe city.
It was a drug capital.
But at that time, it was when he did that, all of a sudden it turned into a very dangerous city in the 70s.
Because they were raised in a different environment.
And it changed, and And that's sad when somebody does something evil, how it changes things.
Yeah.
And that's what the devil does. He does things, and then he kind of ruins it for everybody. And that's really sad that that happens.
But see, Abraham's love, when he prayed for those people, when it was explained to him, well, he understood what was going on. You know, would you kill him for this? Or, there were so many people for that. We don't even have that kind of love for people.
Oh, that's true. That's
And
well.
think about that. He didn't know these people personally, and he knew they weren't the best people. He knew him and Lot knew what was going on in that city. I mean,
They knew what was going on.
stuff
Yes.
that we wouldn't even want to
Well.
be around, and yet and still, they had enough love, knowing that God loved them. Would you destroy them for this many? Would you save them for? And as I was reading that, I was like, they knew what was going on, and yet and still, they were praying for those people that God would give them a chance. Now, we're so quick to judge people in any circumstance that we don't agree with, and without knowing their circumstances.
We have become very polarized.
We're
But I
very
think
polarized
I think what it is, though, is there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of fear up there, and
that shows lack of trust in who?
lack of trust or lack of information or lack of trust in
Both
God.
lack of trust in God,
Yep.
lack of information,
Yep.
knowing what the situation
Sin is.
truly is.
Yep.
Because we see and hear everything about everybody else through filters.
Yeah.
We never get the whole truth of what really went on.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes we create that problem.
We do. Most of the time we do.
You know why? Because we like to judge another people by our
Own standards. Yep.
You know, that's the problem. We have to come with favor to some people, and aggressively we go against other people.
Yep.
If we see life of Abraham, and the first thing which I found this, that he recognized a voice of people,
Oh, yep.
you know, and he remembered that voice, that voice I already heard,
Yeah.
you know, and because of that, he has no other judgment like he believe God gives him.
Yep.
That's he has been pressed by himself, and he said, Lord, but if you find at least 10,
We'll get to that.
you probably
Yeah.
never destroyed it. You said no. Why he asked for 10?
Well,
Just start to
that's
count.
just think of the love of God. That
You know,
should answer it.
I
That's what.
found
You think he was rigging the system? He was trying to get.
found how he got wife, he got 2 daughters
Yeah.
who supposed to be married, and their parents exactly 10.
10. Well, he was thinking. He was thinking. I want to move on to something here. I want to go to Genesis 12, 1 through 9. I want someone wants to read that for me. We'll get to the interaction between God and Abraham.
Is it
Whoever wants to read, or I can read it.
What is the text?
Genesis
12, 1 through 9.
I'll read it if you want.
Yep.
The Lord had said to Abram, "Go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. And I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. And I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse, and all peoples on the earth will be blessed through you. So Abram went as the Lord had told him, and Lot went with him. Abram was 75 years old when he set out from Haran, and he took his wife Sarah, his nephew Lot, and all the possessions they had accumulated, and the people they had acquired in Haran, and they set out for the land of Canaan, and they arrived there. Abram traveled through the land as far as the site of the great tree of Morah at Shechem. At that time, the Canaanites were in the land. The Lord appeared to Abram and said, "To your offspring I will give this land." So he built an altar there to the Lord who had appeared to him. From there he went on toward the hills east of Bethel and pitched a tent, with Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. There he built an altar to the Lord and called on the name of the Lord. Then Abram set out and continued toward Negev.
Okay. In verse 3, it says, I will bless those who bless you. I will curse those who curse you. And all the families of the earth will be blessed through you. Who are the genetic descendants, or who are the physical descendants of Abraham? Jews and the Muslims.
This is pagans.
What?
Pagans area.
Yeah, it's pagans area. But the Jews, is the world blessed by the Jews and the Muslims right now?
No.
And he is from probably Hagar.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
What?
you have to remember, Jesus told the Jews, what was going to happen with them.
Yeah.
Even though they didn't realize it.
They didn't realize it. No.
Says, I'm no longer with you.
No. Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
this will go out to everyone.
But
When they had opportunity to be the one, they chose not to be the one.
yeah.
And now it's gone out to everyone
But,
else.
yeah. Well, that's just it. How many here have had kids go to adventures, and how many have been in here as a member of Pathfinder or Adventure? Not just my daughters. Okay? How many remember the song, if you were a parent and you went with your kids to Pathfinder Adventures, or if you were one, they sing a song, right? Father Abraham had many sons. Many sons had Father Abraham. And I am one of them, and so are you. Who are the true descendants of Abraham? Are you? Yes. And why? Not because you're physically or you're genetically related to Abraham, but because you spiritually follow Abraham, right? Right? God blessed Abraham because he could trust him with a mission, right?
Not only that, there was something else in the lesson this week that was I thought was a very strong point about Abraham. He controlled his house.
Control.
And I shouldn't use the word controlled because that may not be the right word. He ran his house the way the Lord would have it ran. Mm-hmm. I mean, his example, he had how many families in his realm with all the people that were with him? And they all worship the same God.
Yeah.
They all worship like he worshiped. So when people came to him, they saw something that they had not seen anywhere else.
Yeah.
His family followed. And then when I read that, I'm like, I wonder how many families are like that today.
Yeah. That's a good
Where,
question.
I mean, it's a very good point because there's a lot of families, their kids are no longer in church.
Yeah.
A lot of families, husbands and wives are not together. Mm-hmm. And that all comes from not following the dictates of God.
And that's, I think, one of the success that Abraham had. In his heart, he wanted to follow God, and he was going to live his life in accordance to God. So when God tells him, get out of your house, the city of Haran, which really wasn't his native city. They had stopped in Haran, and his father died there. And I think I don't know if his brother, I have to go back and read it, his brother died or whatever, he took Lot with him. He went from there into Canaan. And the Canaanites are not Abraham's people, right? Not too, well, we're going to look at that in a second. But he went in there, and this is not like when I, excuse me, I have to travel. I don't mind traveling in with the United States for my job, or even Canada. That's easy. When I got to travel to Mexico or someplace else, I don't like it, travel for my job, because it's a pain. You know, you got to show passports. You got to find someplace. Basically, they put us in hotels that are secure compounds, because you can't even trust the police in a lot of countries. You know, here in the United States, you can pretty much trust the police, you know, and things like that. But I don't like it when I have to travel here. Here he's going to a whole new place. He doesn't speak the language. He doesn't know the land. There was not a map of Canaan. God didn't say, go down or download Google Maps onto your phone, Abraham. That's what we do now. How many remember road maps? You pick up I still have one. I have my Rand McNally. I'm keeping it. Yeah. You know, and you can see now they're obsolete because we have our navigation. But he didn't even have that. He was just told go. And he trusted God enough to do that. If God were to ask one of you to do that, I hope I would have the faith to do it. I'd probably, are you sure you're God? I mean, who are we asking here? 'Cause I'd be a bit nervous if I was told to go someplace, you know. But sometimes you got to be attentive to that. Okay, we're going to look now into hospitality. I would like someone to read verses, chapter 18, verse 1 through 8.
Okay. Chapter 18, verse 1 through 8?
Yep.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I had the right chapter. And the Lord appeared unto him in the plains of Mamre, and sat in the tent. He sat in the tent in the heat of the day, and lifted up his eyes and looked, and lo, 3 men stood by him. And when he saw them, he ran to meet them from the tent door, and bowed himself toward the ground, and said, My Lord, if I have found favor in thy sight, pass not away, I pray thee, from thy servant. Let a little water, I pray you, be fetched, and you wash your feet, and rest yourselves under a tree. And I will fetch a morsel of bread, and comfort your hearts, and after that you shall pass on. For therefore ye are come unto your servant. And they said, Do as thou hast said. And Abraham hastened into the tent unto Sarah, and said, Make ready quickly 3 measures of fine meal, knead it, and make cakes upon the hearth. And Abraham ran to the herd, fetched a tender calf, and good, and gave it to a young man, and he hastened to dress it. And he took butter, milk, and the calf which he had dressed, and set before them, and stood by them under the tree, and they did eat.
Okay. My daughter told me if you were in Arizona, if you live in Arizona and someone comes to your house and knocks on the door and wants a glass of water, you are legally obligated to give them a glass of water. I've been to Arizona. People love moving there. I always have to go to the deserts. You know, we were there this summer, what was it, 112 in the shade? It was just a miserable experience. But people seem to like it there. I can understand why the laws are such, if somebody wants some water, you got to give it to them. But here, there's no such law, right? Abraham is doing what in the middle of the day? Hanging out in his tent. in the heat. Well, they didn't have air conditioning. What's he supposed to do? He's got to stay in the shade. I can understand. You know,
In the door of the tent so you can see.
see, I'm told in many of the countries in the southern latitudes, they have what they call siesta, where they take the afternoon off because it's really too hot to do anything. They basically take a nap and then they stay up late, you know, because they've got some sleep during the day. I come from a northern European background. That's where my family was, you know, when we were on the farm, it didn't matter how hot it is. You just went out and worked. That's where my parents were.
I think when I read this, Abraham take few minutes to rest himself in the
In the shade. Yeah, he took the
Yeah.
afternoon. Yeah, most people would. In that
And
Middle East,
I
it's
think
hot.
when you just take a moment to rest, you have some thoughts to come to you, you know, always. And God always using this time, our time, you know. And he saw that 2 or 3 men, how you, three, because we lost one during they go to Sodom and Gomorrah, yeah. I like to say I have that kind of experience last week. I have some piece of rest that God used me.
Oh, okay.
And I always prepare my literature with me. And I was in presence of one gentleman. He's a doctor. And we talk. And I feel that he is some kind of lonely and he needs something which I can share with him, you know. And I saw that he got Bible. And I asked him, do you read this Bible? He said, no, I used to do this, but right now, no. I said, are you supposed to just go back and read this? And I give him right away my piece of literature. And they start to talk. That talk was about half an hour. And I found that this gentleman, he is hungry with somebody, you know, hungry, you mean?
Hungry?
Yeah, he needs something, and I try to share it. You know, with Abraham, when he left home, he didn't have any plan because he has been leading but higher authority, you know, by God. Go and I show you. You know, sometimes you should wait a quite long time until you find that God show you, you know. Mostly his way to approach to this is by a human way. You know, he saw that 3 guys wake up and he first approached to them. This is the...
Well, it kind of seems like it's a sleepy scene. And
yeah,
all of a sudden
we never do this.
Yeah, yeah.
We never do. If somebody asks us, yes, okay. But he first go, yeah. And
He reached out, didn't he?
he reached, but coming early, he remembered that voice who said to him, Abram, go out from your family. And that voice, he remembered even in the time which Lord asked, you will sacrifice your son. You know, the same voice.
Yep. Well, I'd like to look at a little bit of what's going on here. How much what he did was a little bit beyond what we would call above and beyond. He first goes to Sarah. He says, "Get out 3 measures of your best flour." How many of you bake here? Okay. Do you have your flour sorted as this is my best flour, or you buy just flour, right? Right from the store, right? Why would he say your best flour? It took work in those days. Sarah had to grind it to a finer standard, and she had to sift it to get out foreign material that they didn't want in the flour. And then she would seal that up and store that someplace where it was watertight and where other critters, basically critters, couldn't get to it. She had to go through extra work to get that kind of flour, right? They didn't even have, I suppose they had grinding mills in those days. You know, we find grinding stones and things like that, but when you had to go and take something to a mill and get it grind to a finer, standard, that's more work, that's more effort, So she probably had her everyday flour.
And for special guests.
And for special guests and special occasions, she had her best flour. And,
I've read this and I thought about, he never asked to that people, do you eat meat? Are you vegetarians?
well, we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that. Well, that's an interesting thing. Then he goes to his herd. He tells his men, find a tender young calf. Now, how many have eaten veal here?
I still do.
You still eat veal? I won't eat veal because I don't like what they do to the babies, the calves. That was one of my jobs on the farm, was to raise the calves, and I'm a little.
The best one.
Yeah, but I never liked it. But I have eaten veal before, and it's good. So he's saying, get the best meat. And because he's butchering the animal when it's a calf, he doesn't have the advantage of letting it grow up, put on pounds and weight. This is money out of his pocket, shall we say, right? He's doing something special, extra there. And then he is, well, it says in my version, cheese curds, fresh cheese he's giving them. So he's giving them a meal of fresh bread. I like fresh bread. I like the smell of bread. They say when you're going to sell a house, one of the things you do is you bake bread, you get that smell through, because people recognize that smell and they love it. Veal. No, I don't eat veal, but I did like veal. It tastes good. And cheese curds. Now, how many of you are vegetarians here? I'm more of a sort of pescatarian. I do it a little bit anyways. How many of you would eat that meal if it was placed before you?
You have to realize the times in which they live. We don't live in those times.
Well, no, wait a second. Hold on before.
In those times, when guests came, they got the best.
They got the best.
They got the best of what you had. It was just like, it's just like water. He felt obligated. It's just like just like you're talking about Arizona. Back then, they wouldn't let somebody traveling with not offering water.
Water.
That was a custom.
Someone turn to Luke chapter 10, verse 8. Jesus is getting to send out his 12 disciples. And what does he say to them?
When you enter a town and are welcome to eat what is offered to you.
Eat what is offered to you.
But reading this, we find that Abraham's family was really organized family. Look at that. How much time you should spend to prepare that food,
Food, yes.
even in today's
Yeah.
our temperature, of life. You need some time.
Oh, yes, like I said, that
And
fine
look
flour.
at that,
Yeah.
how fast he got give work for Sarah. He got for his, other people, and everybody was busy
Oh, yeah.
to prepare that food. That's
Well,
the
there was-
reason that God chose Abraham.
Abraham,
He said, I trust him. He will do
He
this."
was prepared. He was disciplined. That hearth that she cooked that bread in, I don't think she had to stoke it. I think that hearth was already going. She just had to mix up the dough, and I'm not sure what's all involved in that. I'm sure there's flour, oil, probably some salt, and she didn't use yeast because I don't think she had time to let it rise. And then they put it in the oven and they cooked it real fast. So she was prepared. But let's go down to, I believe in the health message, even though I don't practice it. I think it's right. But God says here, eat what is placed before you. That is part of hospitality. If you're in somebody's house and they serve you something and you turn your nose up to it, that's not being very hospitable. I recall when I first started dating Jill, went to their house to eat, meet her parents, and they had, what do you call that stuff? Peanut butter loaf. See, that's what I did. No, what is that? I'm not sure what it is. Peanut butter loaf. You're not missing anything, let me tell you. So anyways, they cut a slice there. I ate it because it was placed before me. Plus, I wanted to make a good impression. And because I wanted to make a good impression, even though they were putting ketchup on peanut butter, I couldn't quite understand that. I ate a second piece just to show I was hospitable. Well, they took it that I liked it really, really well. So the next time I came down there, guess what I got? Peanut butter loaf. I had to explain to Jill alone, what is, can we not have that? Oh, yeah. But her whole family loves that. They think that's great. I'm like, who came up with this? But being hospitable means you eat what's placed before you. Even if it is something, I'm not suggesting we should eat something unclean, but maybe if it's something, say fried chicken, it's not unclean. And even though you're a vegetarian, I mean, if you're at somebody's house and they're making the expense, maybe you should just shut up and eat it and be gracious. I know it's hard for some people. Okay. I'd like to move on here to, we stopped at verse 8. Can we pick up from verse 8 to verse 15? Somebody want to read that? Chapter 18, I'm sorry.
What verses were you looking at again?
We stopped at verse 8 or 9, or 8, so we'll go from 9 to 15.
Okay. And they said unto him, Where is Sarah thy wife? And he said, Behold, in the tent. And he said, I will certainly return unto thee according to the time of life. And lo, Sarah thy wife shall have a son. And Sarah heard it in the tent door which was behind him. And now Abraham and Sarah were old and well stricken in age, and ceased to be with Sarah after the manner of women. Therefore Sarah laughed within herself, saying, I am waxed old. Shall I have pleasure, my Lord, being old also? And the Lord said unto Abraham, Wherefore did Sarah laugh, saying, shall I of the surety bear a child, which I am old? And is anything too hard for the Lord at this time appointed? I will return unto thee according to the time of life, and Sarah shall have a son. And Sarah denied, saying, I laugh, for she was afraid. And he said, Nay, but thou did laugh.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you something here. I've never gone, I don't get invited to fancy dinner parties. Probably a good thing. But I don't understand the etiquette. But I don't think if you're invited to the guest or the host that you laugh at somebody else's expense, right? Right? Now you're in the presence of God, and God is kind of got a little over Sarah, because God can read your mind and your intent, right? So Sarah says she laughed in her heart. And God goes and challenges her, right? He says, why did you laugh, Sarah? Is anything really too hard for me? You want to say something, George?
Oh, you continue.
Is
after that.
anything really too hard for me? I don't think we should boast, but at the same time, we should be those that maybe tell stories or are boastful. We should be patient and listen to. I can kind of see where Sarah's coming from. I'm old. How can I have a children? You know, but if God is who he says he is, can he really do anything? She became fearful. I think she... Abraham's preparing a really fancy meal for them. They're important people. Knew it was God. And she did it silently. She didn't do it overtly. But she did it. Oh, tons. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Is impossible for him.
You know, I support Sarah. I rather come from different point of view. You know, Sarah, he thought like regular human being think about this. She here, you know, in that kind of situation, it's door a little bit open and you hear something which touched you, you know. You are close to these thoughts. Mm-hmm. And you say, what? I will have a baby? Mm-hmm. Oh, no. And she started to laugh with this. Mm-hmm. You know, that laugh, after a while, bring her different, maybe bring her remembrance from her life, that she has the same waiting time. And she wait and wait and wait, and she even gives suggestion to Abraham to do something which she think everything is all right now. But she was only human. Yeah. And she thought like regular we are, you know. Abraham know that voice and stick with that voice always. But Sarah, by her own experience, life experience. She missed something, but she was close to this.
Yeah. How many times have you had I wouldn't call it, maybe a disagreement or a point of confrontation with a friend, and then when it's over, you laugh about it with them. It becomes kind of an inside joke. God does that here. Because who do they name this child? Or what do they name this child? Isaac.
Humanly thinking this is impossible.
Possible, yeah. But they name it, which means what? Laughter. They named the child Isaac, which means laughter. Whenever Sarah would say her son's name, she remembers back to this, where God says, you laughed. It's now an inside joke between Sarah and God. I think what a privilege she had to have something like that. And Abraham's aware of it, and now the whole world's aware of it. That God wants that kind of friendship, that kind of a relationship with you, that he can sit and elbow you and say, hey, remember when? Remember when this happened? It's you and me. It's an inside joke between us. That kind of, I read this, it's a small little passage, and how much God loves us and wants to have that personal, that strong bond with us. He had it with Sarah with this over her son. And I think, you know what? How lucky she was to have that kind of a relationship with God. It's marvelous.
And the same angels who came to Abraham, they brought two kinds of news.
Mm-hmm.
For Abraham and Sarah, good news.
Good news, yeah.
But after a while, the same angels brought a bad news.
Oh, yeah. We're going to get to that here. Okay, so I'm going to read here from verse 17. This is from the New Living Standard. Should I hide my plan from Abraham, the Lord asks. For Abraham will become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth will be blessed through him. Who is Abraham's descendant that blesses us all? Jesus Christ. And it's interesting. Who's talking to Abraham? Jesus. Jesus is talking to his former, I don't know how many generations back, great grandfather. When you think about it, it's kind of amazing, isn't it? But he says, I have singled him out so that he will direct his sons and their families to keep the way of the Lord and do what is right and just. And then I will do for him all that I have promised. So the Lord told Abraham, I have heard that the people of Sodom and Gomorrah are extremely evil, and that everything they do is wicked. The two other men went towards Sodom, but the Lord remained with Abraham for a while. And Abraham approached them and said, will you destroy both the innocent and the guilty alike? Suppose you find 50 innocent people there within the city. Will you destroy it and not spare it for their sakes? Surely you wouldn't do such a thing as destroying the innocent with the guilty. Why would you be treating the innocent and the guilty exactly the same? Surely you wouldn't do that. Should not the judge of the earth do what is right? And the Lord replied, if I find 50 innocent people in Sodom, I will spare the entire city for their sake. Then Abraham spoke again. Since I have begun, let me go on and speak further to my Lord, even though I am dust and ashes. Suppose there are only 45. Will you destroy the city for lack of 5? The Lord said, I will not destroy it if I find 45. Then Abraham pressed the request further. Suppose, it's almost like a child talking to you. How many, your kids go, it's kind of getting to that. And Abraham pressed this request further. Suppose there are only 40. Well, the Lord replied, I will not destroy it if there are 40. Please don't be angry, Abraham pleaded. Let me speak. Suppose only 30 are found. The Lord replied, I will not destroy it if there are 30. Then Abraham said, since I dared to speak to the Lord, let me continue. Suppose there are only 20. And the Lord said, I will not destroy it for the sake of 20. And finally, Abraham said, and as George said, do not get angry. Speak but once more. Suppose only 10 are found there. And the Lord said, then for the sake of 10, I will not destroy it. And the Lord hid his way and finished his conversation with Abraham. And Abraham returned to his tent. Now, what is this an example of? Mercy. Love. On Jesus' part, on God's part. We're supposed to be like Abraham. What's an example for Abraham? What is it? He's asking for mercy. Okay, but what else? There's a word we call what Abraham did. When you see somebody on the street, all right, how many men are gentlemen? If you see a door and a woman is approaching you, what do? Open the door for them. You're interceding, right? Interceding or interfering, but you're interceding in a positive sense, right? If you see somebody, like just here, I wasn't there to help you with your water bottle, so I couldn't intercede. But when you see a car broke down on the side of the road, what do?
Just try to help.
You just try to help. At least make a phone call, right? You're interceding. Abraham is interceding for these people. He's putting his reputation with God on the line. What did God do for us on the cross? He interceded for us.
I like to come and feel as Abraham. He saw that 3 men in the beginning, After a while, he talked. He mentioned my Lord. It's something higher, that man. And since that time, he continued that conversation as Lord. And that Lord revealed him what he come to do.
Yeah.
This is, from one side, is so difficult to recognize. We right now, we say that Lord was Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
You see, recognize man and bring to the level of Son of God, or Lord, And that Lord talked to him, and he said, I never do anything secretly. And they we don't have this road, but there was conversation become during that walking with the Lord, until they come to the sense of that conversation, that I go to Sodom and Gomorrah. And in mind of Abraham, he just came, that my brother, Lot, he lives over there. And he tried to negotiate or bargain, how we say it. But I say this is a pray. And when we have some difficult problems, we should pray that kind of prayer to our Lord.
Yes.
Not stay, God, Lord, 50, okay, it's enough. No. We should negotiate up to the 10, like
Abraham. We should
like
go.
Abraham.
We should grab for all we want.
What gives me idea how I should prepare my prayer? I never prepare. This is my conversation with my Lord.
There's a story in the Bible. When Elisha's dying, he tells a king, and it's a wicked king, to shoot an arrow out through a window. And then he tells him, take an arrow and hit it on the ground. And he goes, that many times, hits it only 3 times, and he gets angry with him. Should have did it 5 or 6 times. Because you only had faith to do it 3 times. You will not defeat the Syrians.
And
even
Christ said that lady who come to that judge, you know, to ask him help.
Oh, yeah.
He was so, how to say in English, that she didn't enough for her.
Yep.
That he reject her. No, she come again
Yeah.
and again and again.
God is offering, take everything you can get. Now, there's something else I want to mention here. I'm trying to repair my microphone on the fly here. There we go. The Lord expects us, this.
I was going to say, not only, let me see that's yours. Not only did not keep what he was about to do secret from Abraham, he has not kept secret from us the things that are about to happen here on earth.
But
we not only have them explained biblically, we also have them explained even more in detail in the spirit of prophecy.
yeah.
So he's kept nothing secret from us. Not only Abraham, but even from us. We know exactly what's about to go down.
Yep. Did the Lord need to go and see Sodom and Gomorrah to see that it was wicked?
Oh,
He knew. He did this. Think about this. He did this all for Abraham. We want to show him. I want him to know what he's going to do. The Lord does that for us. But what does he expect in return?
To us to do what he would have us do.
Intercede. You see, we think in this church, well, many people do, that the battle is going to be won by some great prophet or some great preacher that the Lord's going to raise up. It's not. It's going to be won by you and I. Little people doing small things, praying for one another and interceding for one another.
Abraham probably prayed always
Yep.
for that
City.
area,
Yeah.
Sodom and Gomorrah, because God said that I come and visit that this which God knows about Sodom. How he knows? The prayer of Abraham. Yes, so.
Okay, we're almost done here. I did not pray for those we talked about at the beginning. Oh, Jill?
I was just going to say in the New Testament, Paul and the other writers constantly say encourage one another with these words, whether it be in 1 Thessalonians 4 about the second coming and the raising of the dead, or if it's helping one another in the church and how to relate with one another as a group of church believers. We're to encourage and uplift one another, and that's all part of the process of hospitality, as you put it.
That's we were to reading, yeah. All right, I'm going to have prayer, and I want to remember what I didn't do at the beginning of the day. I want to have a closing prayer. Dear Heavenly and Gracious Father, as we close this Sabbath school, help us to be hospitable to one another, pray for one another and to bear their burdens. For the missing members that may be up at Camp Sabbath or not feeling well or didn't come, we ask you to remember them, to prick their hearts. We would like to see them back in church. For Jill and her ankle, may she have healing there. For our daughters, my daughters, may they continue to prosper and do well. For the upper back, neck and back of the teacher at school, may she be blessed and may have healing. May we have 8 more in the school. And for our evangelistic meetings that are coming up, may they be successful. May we have a burden for the city of Detroit. And may we win it for you. In thy name forever. Amen. Okay. Thank you.